Hi, this is Dr. Sarambis, and I'd like to talk to you about writing your paper, what to do and what not to do, in hopes that I can give you some advice so that you can be successful on writing your first paper. First, what to do. Well, you want to read all the assignment information beforehand, which means that you're going to go to pages 7 through 8 of the course syllabus. And what you're going to do is first, you're going to read the directions and the purpose of this assignment. And then you're going to go to the assignment specifics. Next, look for tips for writing a scholarly paper. This is on page 8 of the syllabus. And then look for the rubric, and then also look for the template. And we'll be talking about those again in a few minutes. Now, as for the rubric, I suggest that you use the rubric as a checklist. You need to have all of these items within the rubric. And so look at what gets the heaviest number of points. Well, the introduction does, and that's 30 points right there. So you want to introduce the proposed healthcare legislation, and you want to make sure that you contain all of these items that are there. And what I suggest is, again, you just check off each one as you have those. I do want to tell you that the direct link to the particular bill only needs to be in the references, but you do need to cite the bill in the way that I have explained in the announcement page of your course. Now, you also want to explain why the legislation is important to you, and then you want to summarize its intent. Next, you're going to go to investigating the legislative process. Now, if you're writing on a federal bill, this should be rather easy, because how a bill becomes law is in your textbook, and it is also in the Annenberg Center video. That is in Module 2 of your course, and also it's on various websites. I do want to caution you that if your paper is on a state bill, then you need to go to that state legislature to find out how within that state a bill becomes a law. And it is different from state to state, so you need to be careful with that particular aspect. And then you want to be sure that you say, where is your bill in the process of becoming a law? Next, you want to formulate an informed opinion as to the legislation's merit. Now, this is worth 25 points, which is a lot of points. And you can state your position either as a positive or negative. The only thing that you need to do is to really support that position with the literature. Now, I know that we say here, identify at least one credible source of information to support your opinion, but I am going to suggest that you actually use more than one source. You also want to describe how this law would be impacting the health of individuals, communities, profession of nursing, etc. You can choose one of those. Now, for the conclusion, this is going to be a summary, a recap, a wrap-up of the entire paper. And I often think of Whoopi Goldberg in Sister Act when she said, now let's take it on home. And so that's what you're doing to your paper. You're really just bringing it all back to a full summary of everything you've already presented, done briefly and concisely and succinctly, and then you're going to put a little bow on it. And you're going to address two more items. You're going to address opposing viewpoints regarding the bill, if there are any, and explain why the readers should align with your position. Next, you're going to provide something of a takeaway to help readers see things differently or appreciate the topic in personally relevant ways. Now, the other parts of the rubric are the writing style and also APA format. And so we want to be very clear. What you will see here is it actually tells you the section in the APA manual as to where you can find the writing style, that particular item, and also APA format where you can find that format. Now, these are not all the things that we'll be looking for, but it just gives you an idea of the main things within writing style in APA. Each one of those is given 10 points. Use the template as a guide. The template really is going to walk you through, it walks you through a sample paper, but it does not give you the exact number of pages. It doesn't fill up a particular page or a particular section. So it's not to be in that way, but it's to give you some help with what items you should include in the paper, and also in highlighted in yellow, I have specific comments about the abstract, the key words, things to help you. Now, I want to go to level headers. A mistake that often students make is they forget to put in subheadings, or what APA calls level headers. Now, APA has a unique heading system. And if you go to APA in the Purdue University site, or even if you go to your APA manual, you will find they have 5 different levels. I want you only to concentrate on 2. That's the most that you will probably use for a number of your courses. The first level heading, and I will show you that a little later on, is actually centered, it's bolded, and it's the title of your paper on the first page of text. Then any subheadings that you had, any level headers, these will be left aligned, so aligned with that left-hand margin, and they will be bold-faced as well. And these level headers, we often suggest that you take those directly from the different sections on the rubric. That way, you don't have to worry about leaving out a section of the paper that really needed to be there. So here's some suggested level headers that I have for you. Introduction, legislative process, legislation's merit, and then conclusion. So as you can see here, you have 4 level headers or subheadings. Now, of course, you want to make sure that you use APA format. Margins are to be 1 inch. You double space each line. You never have more than a double space. Sometimes people make the mistake of double spacing twice in between paragraphs or in between particular level headers. You do not do that. Everything is just double spaced. When you move on to your separate reference page, within the references and in between references, that also is just double spaced. Now you want to make sure that you include page numbers in the top right-hand side of your paper. And you'll want to include also a running head. Now I have a video within the Tips for Success section of the course, and this particular video shows how to insert the number and also the running head. It's a very brief video. It's a little over 2 minutes, but really there's a very small section of it that you need, and I find it to be helpful myself. You also want to include keywords below the abstract. Now the reason for this, if this was going to be an article that you would publish, the publisher uses those key words as a way to search for your topic. Now you want to use a great introduction. You want to grab your reader's attention. You want them to think, geez, why should I even bother reading this paper? So statistics or statements that show the significance of a bill or whatever topic you are writing on in a paper should be made within the beginning of that first paragraph. First paragraph, great introduction, grab the reader. Why is this important? You also want to use paraphrasing. It's one way to use text in your own writing without directly quoting the source material. Sometimes, again, people make a mistake and they think, oh, geez, I really have to quote everything because I'm taking it from a source. Quoting does nothing more than really show that you haven't been able to take the material, synthesize it into your own words, and then write it that way. You only use quotes when you need to really specify certain information. I'll speak about that in a few minutes. So anytime you are taking information from a source that is not your own, you do need to specify where you got that information. But again, place it into your own words. Now I wanted to show you what a similarity index looks like. The similarity index can be found when you go into your paper. You click over in the right-hand corner where it says originality, and it lights up in red when you click on it. Over to the right, you will see that it says it's 9% similar. Now, it's 9% similar to other sources. And you can see that this is a student paper, 2%. Now, this says Representative McNerney, I think it's probably California, it's a publication, I'm going to bet that's the individual that actually introduced the bill. That's 2% similar. And you can see 1, 1, 1. I mean, really, I bet I'm not going to have any problems with this paper because there's such small percentages. Now let's go over. They're color-coded and they're also number-coded. So let's go to this hot pink, the Mental Health Training Enhancement for First Responders Act of 2016. Well, of course, that's taken from another source. That's the title of the bill. And then where it was introduced, the time it was introduced, and by Mr. McInerney. So again, that I would expect that as a faculty member. And then again, another bill is mentioned. Now, as I'm looking, these are things that I would expect to commonly be found in another source. So even with a 9% similarity as a total for this paper, I'm already seeing that there are similarities that aren't even, an issue. And so I just wanted to say to you, when looking at the similarity index, what you're going to do is you want it to be below 24% total. Try to make it well below that 24% total. So within the Blackboard course, if you go to Writing Tips, there is a section on using the similarity index. Now, if you click here, it takes you to a video showing you how to view and interpret the Turnitin Originality Report. And that is right down here. Clicking on this light blue Turnitin Viewing Originality video. This is a report, explains the report. Now, I have information already here, and it tells you, okay, that number at the top right of your page, that'll be in blue if there's no matching words. I've never seen that, by the way. They always manage to find something. Green, 24%. Yellow is 25 to 49, etc. So you really need to get it below that 24%. Now, why do we use this? We use this so students learn how to put what they've read into their own words. And that will help you when you're writing your paper. So, use the submission link. The submission link is under Assignments in the left-hand column of your course, that blue panel. Click Assignments, and then up at the top, scroll down a little bit till you see the folder that has the legislation process review. And at the very top of the page, when that link opens, you will see the submission area for the legislation. Submit early and often. The reason being, the first time you submit a paper, it will take either immediately or just a few hours for it to give you a similarity index. After that, any other subsequent submission takes 24 hours, and in order to, give or take an hour or two, to get a similarity index. I will remind you also, you do not want to wait until Sunday to submit your paper, because remember, it takes 24 hours. So if you wait at that time to submit the first submission of your paper, you're not going to know in what direction you're heading because you won't get that similarity index in time. Only the last submission before the deadline is graded, and even if you submit that paper up to 100 times before the deadline, it does not recognize a similarity between the first, second, third, fourth, fifth version of your paper that is written by you. Okay? Now, this is the same as the announcement that I have on the announcement page, and it just shows you, and it's also under Writing Tips, and it shows you how to cite a bill, and also within the text of the paper, and also how to do it within the reference page. So now, what not to do? Well, don't forget, the paper is to be a minimum of 6 full pages, all the way down to the bottom of the page, to a minimum of 8 pages. So a minimum of 6 to 8 pages. Do not submit one line less than 6 pages. So a big tip that I give to folks is always to write on to the 7th page. This way you can be sure you have a minimum of 6 pages. The page count does not include the cover page, the abstract, or the reference page. So it has to be a minimum of 6 to 8 pages of actual text of your paper. Now, don't forget to avoid the use of quotation marks. Quotes are great for citing statistics, for example, a definition, specific statement made by another. So you want to avoid these because they begin to look like, I call them space eaters. Okay, they like block quotes, take up space within a paper. Usually if we need to absolutely quote that kind of information, we put it in an appendix and then really give our source for that. So avoid block quotes. This is a very short paper, 6 to 8 pages. Also, don't forget to include citations throughout the text of a paper where it is appropriate. Make sure that each citation can also be found in the reference page, and also that the references each link back to a citation within the text of your paper. Place the title of your paper at the top middle of your first page, and then references are begun on a new page with references typed at the top of the paper. Now, you don't want to forget to use APA with citations and references. APA may be worth just 10 points, but it can be the difference between a 90 and 100. In the reference page, the first line of a reference is always flush with the margin, and each line that follows with that reference is indented, just 5 to 7 spaces. You want to check the default on the computer for the tabs. So when you hit a tab, it should just indent no more than 7 spaces. Sometimes if I see indentations of 12 to 14 spaces, and I do see that, it's somebody hit the tab twice, and you don't want to do that. Now you do, as I said before, double space within and in between each reference. Also, don't forget that if you use the textbook as a reference, it is an edited textbook with separate authors for each chapter. And so it needs to be cited that way. And so don't forget, again, in the announcement page and in writing tips, I have example of this. Don't forget that journal articles after 2007 all have DOI numbers, and so that these need to be included. Now, I also have placed this into your course. It's a sample paper that APA put out. And it really shows you very nicely the various things that I've been talking about. So let's start with, on the first page of text, this is where the title of your paper goes. And then look at these indentations, no more than 7 spaces for each of the new paragraphs. And then at the very top, we have a running head and we have a page number. Now, on your title page, you will write the words running head with a colon, and then you will capitalize the entire actual running head. So just make sure that you check that to see how that is done. Now, usually this is where I take any questions, but if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the question part of the course. Thank you.